Tonight, we settle in for a long, slow journey through one of the most beloved stories ever told. A story of quiet courage, of green hills and ancient mountains, of friendship that holds even when everything else falls away. We are going to walk through the world of Middle-earth together, one gentle step at a time. There is no rush. The story will find its way to you. So breathe easy. Let your body sink into wherever you are resting, and allow the words to carry you. This is The Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. But before that, my name's Murphy, and I'd love to know where you're listening from, and what time of day it is for you. If this brings you calm, don't forget to subscribe. There are so many more peaceful nights ahead. Let us begin. Before we meet our hobbits and their quiet green hills, the story asks us to look back, far back to a time before any living memory, when the world was younger and darker, and a great shadow stretched across the land of Middle-earth. There was once a dark lord named Sauron. He ruled from a terrible place called Mordor, a land of ash and fire where nothing soft or gentle could survive. Sauron was powerful in ways that went beyond ordinary strength. He understood magic and craft, and he used both to make something that would outlast him even in defeat. He forged a ring. It was made in secret, deep inside a mountain called Mount Doom, where fire burned beneath the earth and the air shimmered with heat. The ring looked simple enough. A plain band of gold, unremarkable at first glance. But Sauron had poured something of himself into it. His will, his power, his desire to control every living thing in Middle-earth. 9 rings had been given to men, who over long years became shadowy servants, bound to Sauron's will. 7 went to the dwarf lords, 3 went to the elves, though those remained untouched by the darkness, because the elves were wiser than most. The 1 ring, though, was the one that mattered above all the others. Through it, Sauron meant to rule them all. For a long time it worked. His armies spread across the land. Kingdoms fell, people fled, the free peoples of Middle-earth, men and elves and dwarves, seemed unable to stand against him, and yet they did not give in completely. They gathered together, an alliance, fragile and imperfect, but real. Men and elves who put aside older grievances and stood side by side against the shadow. The battle that followed was enormous, armies clashing on vast plains, under skies darkened with ash and smoke. It went on for years. Slowly, painfully, the Alliance pushed Sauron's forces back. They marched on Mordor itself, and there, on the slopes of Mount Doom, the tide turned in a way no one had quite expected. Sauron himself came out to fight. He was taller than any man, armored in black, carrying a weapon like a great club that he swung wide and swept soldiers aside like fallen leaves. He moved through the battlefield, and it seemed for a moment that nothing could stop him. But then 2 men stood their ground, a king named Elendil and his son Isildur. They faced Sauron together. Elendil fell, his sword shattered. But Isildur reached down and took up the broken blade, and with what strength remained in him, he used the broken edge to cut the ring from Sauron's hand. The moment the ring left him, Sauron's form collapsed. His power broke. His armies scattered and fell apart. The dark tower crumbled. The shadow retreated. Middle-earth breathed again. The war was over, and the ring had been taken from its maker. The elven lord Elrond, who stood nearby when Isildur cut the ring away, urged the young man to do something important. He brought Isildur to the edge of the great fire inside Mount Doom, and told him clearly and plainly that the ring had to be destroyed. that it was dangerous, that as long as it existed, Sauron's spirit could return. The fires of Mount Doom were the only place in the world that could unmake it. Isildur looked into the fire. He looked at the ring in his palm, and he chose to keep it. He called it his father's price, his compensation for the loss and sacrifice his family had suffered. It was a small and human thing to do, in a way. He wanted something for all that had been taken. The ring, already working on him in its quiet way, gave him a reason. So Isildur walked away from the fire with the ring still in his possession, and the chance to end everything was lost. Some time later, Isildur was ambushed at a river crossing. Arrows found him. He fell into the water. The ring slipped from his finger in the current, and he was carried away by the river and lost. The ring sank to the bottom of the riverbed and lay there, alone in the mud, waiting, as it always would wait, as it was patient enough to do. Many long years passed. The world moved on. Sauron's defeat faded from daily thought, though the elves remembered. The ring lay still and quiet in the riverbed. Then one day, a creature happened to be fishing near that spot. His name was Smeagol, and he was the sort of small, curious creature who liked to look at things others overlooked. He reached into the water, and his fingers closed around the ring. From the moment he held it, something changed in him. He felt drawn to it, in a way that went deeper than wanting. It was more than desire. It was like the ring reached inside him and found something to hold on to. He hid it away. He kept it secret. He told himself it was his, that he had found it, that it belonged to him and no one else. He called it his treasure. He called it his precious. Over the years that followed, the ring changed Smeagol slowly and completely. He became thin and pale. His eyes grew wide and used to darkness. He stopped living among others and crept away to the roots of a mountain, into caves near an underground lake, where he sat alone in the dark and talked to himself and to the ring. The other half of himself he began to call Gollum, named for the sound he made in his throat. He lived there for hundreds of years, longer than anything natural, kept alive by the ring in a way that wasn't exactly living, just enduring, just surviving in the dark with his treasure. But eventually, the ring found its way out of those caves. A hobbit named Bilbo Baggins stumbled into that underground world quite by accident during an adventure he had not entirely planned for. He found the ring on the ground in the dark, slipped it into his pocket without quite understanding what it was, and later used it to escape from Gollum when Gollum came looking for him. Bilbo made it home to the Shire, back to his round green front door and his warm kettle and his comfortable armchair. The ring came with him, tucked away in a waistcoat pocket, not yet revealing itself fully. Bilbo kept it for 60 years after that. He used it occasionally, mostly to disappear when he didn't want to deal with visitors. He grew fond of it, the way people grow fond of old, comfortable things that have been with them a long time. But Bilbo did not age the way he should have. 60 years passed, and he remained sprightly, energetic, youthful-looking. His neighbors noticed. They called him well-preserved, and said it with a mixture of admiration and unease. Only the wizard Gandalf, who visited the Shire from time to time, watched all of this with quiet and growing concern. When we properly enter the story, it is a beautiful day in the Shire, warm and golden, with rolling green hills and hedgerows and the smell of good things growing. The Shire is the kind of place that feels like it exists slightly outside of the rest of the world's concerns. Hobbits are small, round-cheeked people who enjoy their meals and their gardens and their pipes. They like comfort and routine and good conversation with neighbors. They are not adventurous by nature, or at least they prefer not to think of themselves that way. Today is a very particular day. Bilbo Baggins is turning 111 years old, and the Shire is preparing for a party. Not just any party, the sort of party that people talk about for years afterward. Bilbo has always liked to celebrate things properly, and his 11th birthday, as he calls it, is going to be done in proper style. Workers are hanging lanterns in the fields, long tables are being set with food, an enormous tent has gone up, fireworks have been arranged, the whole village is buzzing with the pleasant anticipation of a good time. Young Frodo Baggins, Bilbo's nephew and heir, moves through the preparations with a smile on his face. He's a quiet young hobbit, with bright, curious eyes and dark, curly hair, and he adores his uncle in the fond, uncomplicated way of someone who has always been treated with warmth. He and Bilbo have a gentle, teasing sort of relationship, easy and affectionate. The fields around Bag End, Bilbo's cosy hilltop home, are full of hobbit children chasing each other between the lanterns. Smoke curls from chimneys. The afternoon settles into that comfortable feeling of a celebration that hasn't quite started yet, but is already making people happy just by being near. Then, down the lane, a cart comes rolling in. On it sits an old man in grey robes and a wide-brimmed hat, with a long beard and sharp blue eyes that hold a quality of both great age and great amusement. This is Gandalf the Wizard, and he has come for Bilbo's birthday. The children spot him first. They know what's in the back of his cart. Fireworks. They follow along the lane, curious and excited, and Gandalf plays a small game with them, pretending not to notice until exactly the right moment, then producing a small shower of coloured sparks that makes them scatter and laugh. Frodo is waiting at the gate of Bag End when the cart arrives. He and Gandalf greet each other with the warmth of old friends, which in a sense they are. Gandalf has known Frodo since he was very small. They talk for a moment, teasing each other lightly, and then Gandalf makes his way up the lane toward Bilbo's home, while Frodo watches him go with a grin. Bilbo himself greets the old wizard inside, and they settle in for a pipe and a conversation. Bilbo is in excellent spirits, bright-eyed and talkative, full of plans. He tells Gandalf about his speech for the party, his little joke he has prepared, the adventure he is still quietly thinking about taking. Gandalf listens and watches, as he always does, with the patience of someone who has seen a great many things, and knows that it is better to let people arrive at their own conclusions when possible. The afternoon turns gently toward evening. The village fills with visitors. The celebration is almost here. The party itself is everything Bilbo promised it would be. Hobbits eat, drink, dance, and enjoy the fireworks that Gandalf sets off with remarkable precision. One in particular lights up the whole sky in the shape of a dragon, so lifelike and enormous that the crowd gasps and scatters before realizing it isn't real. Then the laughter comes, louder than before. Bilbo stands up to give his speech, which he has clearly enjoyed writing. He tells the assembled hobbits how much he loves them, though he says it in a way that also pokes fun at some of them gently, which gets a knowing laugh. He tells them he has things to say, that he doesn't know half of them as well as he should like, and he knows less than half of them as well as they deserve. It is the kind of speech that says a great deal by pretending to say very little. And then, in the middle of the applause, Bilbo slips the ring onto his finger. He vanishes, completely. One moment standing there, the next simply gone. The crowd stares at the empty space. People look at each other. and Bilbo, invisible, walks quietly away from the party and up the lane toward home, with a very satisfied look on his face that no one can see. Back inside Bag End, Bilbo moves around his beloved home with a kind of deliberate finality. He seems to be saying goodbye to things in his own quiet way. He takes his pack from where it has been waiting, already prepared. He puts on his traveling cloak. He moves through the rooms he has lived in for so many decades, past the bookshelves and the fireplace, and the small comforts that have made this home. Gandalf arrives. He finds Bilbo in the study, and they have a conversation that grows steadily more complicated. Bilbo talks about his plan to go away. He has been thinking about it for a long time, he says. He wants to see the mountains again, the woods, the rivers. He is 111 years old, and he still feels the pull of the world beyond the Shire. He has earned this, he feels. He wants to go, and then he wants to rest somewhere far away, and not be brought back. Gandalf listens, and then gently he asks about the ring. Bilbo's mood changes. It is subtle but noticeable. He becomes a little defensive, then a little evasive, then almost sharp. He refers to the ring as his own. He says things about it that are out of proportion, that he needs it, that it's not for anyone else, that it's his. Gandalf watches all of this carefully, the way he watches most things. He tells Bilbo that the ring should stay behind, that Frodo should have it, as Bilbo has always intended. The struggle inside Bilbo is visible for just a moment. A tightening around the eyes, a clenched hand. Then something releases, and he is simply an old hobbit again, tired and a little confused, as though he had been hearing a sound for a long time, and finally noticed it had stopped. He sets the ring down on the mantelpiece. He picks up his pack, opens the door, and walks out into the evening. He is lighter. He whistles to himself, just softly, as he disappears down the lane and away from the Shire forever. Frodo comes home to find Gandalf sitting quietly in the study. The ring is on the floor where it fell after Bilbo left it on the mantel. Gandalf tells Frodo that Bilbo has gone, that he left something behind for him. Frodo looks at the ring. He picks it up in its envelope and holds it, not yet putting it on. He is puzzled more than anything else. He knows Bilbo has always been a little eccentric, that there were stories about that ring of his, but it's only a piece of... He doesn't understand yet what it is. Gandalf tells him to keep it safe, to keep it secret. He says this with a weight in his voice that Frodo notices, though he doesn't yet know what to make of it. Then the wizard leaves, stepping back out into the night, and Frodo is left alone in the Bag End, with the quiet around him and the ring in his hand. He holds it for a moment, then tucks it away safely. Years pass, though the film moves through them without lingering. Frodo continues his life in Bag End, comfortable and quiet. He reads, he walks, he has tea with his friends. Sam, who tends the garden with dedicated care. Merry and Pippin, who are cheerful and always finding some kind of trouble to wander into. Gandalf, meanwhile, has gone away to dig through old records. He travels, visits archives, speaks with very old and very knowledgeable people. He is following a thread of information that he does not want to pull too quickly, because if he is right about what the ring is, then everything changes. He finds what he was looking for in the archives of Minas Tirith, where the records of an old dead king are kept. The writing he discovers is ancient. The ring had been described once. There is a language of fire that appears on the One Ring when it is heated, letters that glow in the script of Mordor. And the description matches. Gandalf comes back to the Shire. He has been gone a long time. He finds Frodo at home, surprised and glad to see him. They sit together by the fire. Gandalf asks for the ring, holds it over the flames for a moment, and then holds it out towards the firelight. Letters appear on the ring, flowing script red against the gold. Frodo cannot read what it says, but Gandalf can. He reads it to himself, and his expression is very still and very serious. He places the ring back in Frodo's hand and tells him what it is. It is the One Ring, made by Sauron, lost for an age. And now here in the quiet sitting room of a hobbit hole in the Shire, sitting in the palm of a very surprised young hobbit who had absolutely no idea, Gandalf explains everything. The history, the war, how it came to Gollum, how Gollum lost it, how Bilbo found it. He explains what it means for Sauron, who is not truly defeated, only reduced, only waiting. He explains that Sauron's servants, the Ringwraiths, the Nazgul, are already abroad in the world searching for it, that they know it is in the Shire. Frodo sits very still and takes all of this in. Gandalf tells Frodo he cannot stay at Bag End, that it isn't safe, and it won't be safe for the Shire either if the ring remains here. He needs to leave, and soon. Gandalf himself must go briefly to consult with Saruman, the head of his order, the wisest of the wizards. He will return, and then they will work out what to do together. He makes Frodo promise to stay in the house, to not use the ring, to not go anywhere, and above all, not to let anyone know about the ring. Then Gandalf leaves. Frodo sits alone in Bag End in the evening quiet. The hobbit hole is cosy and familiar around him, the firelight warm, the sounds of the Shire coming in softly through the windows. But something has shifted. The ring hangs around his neck on a chain now. He is aware of it in a way he wasn't before. And the quiet of the Shire, which has always felt so comfortable, now feels thin in a way he cannot quite explain. He waits. Gandalf's absence stretches longer than expected. Time passes with Frodo in the house, and the Shire going about its ordinary days around him, unaware. The gardens are tended. Neighbors wave from paths. Children play in the lane. It all looks exactly the same as it always has. And yet Frodo sits inside with this knowledge pressing quietly on him. When Gandalf does return, it is not with reassurance. He arrives in the evening, somewhat hurried, and what he brings back with him is not good news. His visit to Saruman has left him shaken in ways he is careful not to show too completely. What he has learned has only deepened his certainty. The ring is what he feared it was. Sauron's servants are already moving. Time, which felt like it was stretching out, has in fact run quite short. There is no comfortable way for Gandalf to say what he says next. Frodo needs to go, tonight if possible. The Ringwraiths, 9 black riders who were once men and are now neither living nor dead, are searching the roads leading into the Shire. They are drawn to the ring, the way iron is drawn to a magnet. They will not stop. They do not get tired or lost or distracted. They will find what they are looking for, unless it is moved. Frodo needs to get to Rivendell, a valley far to the east where the elf lord Elrond keeps his house. It is safe there, or safer than anywhere else. From Rivendell, decisions can be made about what to do next. But first the Shire, and then the road. And the road comes first. Frodo stands in his kitchen and absorbs this. He looks around Bag End, at the things hanging on walls, the books on shelves, the familiar clutter of a comfortable life. Then he nods and begins to prepare. Gandalf steps outside while Frodo gathers a few things, and that is when they discover that Samwise Gamgee has been crouching in the garden just below the window. Sam is Frodo's gardener, and perhaps his closest friend. A loyal and sincere young hobbit with round cheeks and an honest face. He was not eavesdropping intentionally. He was working in the garden and simply hadn't wanted to interrupt. And then the conversation became something he couldn't unhear. Gandalf takes this about as well as one might expect, which is to say he is not delighted. But after a short exchange, he makes a decision. Sam will go with Frodo. He tells Sam this is a serious matter and asks if Sam understands what he's agreeing to. Sam says that he does, with the simple certainty of someone who has already decided and is only waiting to be told yes. The two of them set off together into the dark, carrying their packs, leaving the warm lights of Bag End behind. The Shire looks different at night, still green and rolling and peaceful in its way, but the familiar roads feel less friendly in the dark. Every sound carries further. The rustle of something in a hedgerow becomes worth noticing. Frodo and Sam walk quickly, keeping to the smaller paths rather than the main road, moving through meadows and across stiles, staying low and quiet. They talk a little as they walk, the comfortable conversation of people who have known each other long enough to not need to say important things out loud. Sam remarks that they haven't gone very far from home yet, and Frodo agrees. Sam says he wonders if they'll see any elves. Frodo smiles, just slightly. The fields stretch ahead of them, and they keep going. In one of the fields, a figure drops out of a tree right in front of them and lands in the cabbages below. Then another. Meriadoc Brandybuck, Merry, and Peregrine Took, Pippin, are very pleased with themselves. They have been waiting here. They know something is going on. They are Frodo's oldest friends, and they are not about to be left out of it. The debate that follows is short. Frodo tries to explain that this is serious, and that they shouldn't be involved. Merry produces a pack he has already assembled, completely prepared for a journey. Pippin nods enthusiastically beside him. It's immediately clear that neither of them has any intention of going home. They have food, they have sensible boots, they are coming. The four hobbits continue on together, and the added company makes the dark fields feel a little less large. They have not gotten far along a wooded road when the noise starts. It is a sound that doesn't fit the night. A slow, rhythmic sound hooves on the road, but wrong somehow. Too deliberate, too quiet in some ways and too present in others. The air around the hobbits changes. It feels heavier, colder, even though the night is warm. A black horse appears on the road ahead, carrying a rider in dark robes. The rider has no visible face. It sits very still on the horse and seems to be breathing in, tasting the air, searching for something it cannot quite see but knows is close. This is one of the Nazgul, one of the 9. Frodo feels the ring. Not just the weight of it on its chain, but something deeper than that. A pull, a suggestion, as though something is asking him to put it on. He does not. He grips the ground and does not move. The rider pauses on the road. It tilts its head slowly. Then, after a long moment, it moves on. The hobbits stay very still in the ditch below the road until they can no longer hear anything. This happens more than once along the way. The black riders are circling the roads, returning, searching. Each time one comes near, the hobbits feel that same cold feeling, and the ring seems to vibrate with something like recognition. Each time, they manage to get off the road and out of sight before the rider sees them. It is exhausting in a way that goes beyond physical tiredness. There is something draining about that presence, something that presses on the mind and makes simple thoughts harder to hold on to. Frodo feels it more strongly than the others, though he doesn't say so. They keep moving. The goal is simply to get to the ferry crossing at Bucklebury and across the river, where the riders will have more difficulty following. The path through the fields brings them across a stretch of land belonging to Farmer Maggot, a hobbit whose mushroom fields are well known in the area, and who is also well known for his strong opinions about people crossing through them uninvited. Frodo has complicated memories of this particular farm from his younger years. They move through the field carefully, keeping low and quiet among the rows. The mushrooms are large and pale in the dark, and it is oddly peaceful in the field for a moment. Just the smell of earth and the soft ground underfoot. But they don't linger. They keep moving until they're through. The road to Bucklebury winds down through familiar countryside, but the hobbits are not stopping to appreciate it tonight. They can hear the riders somewhere behind them, or they imagine they can. The sounds of pursuit and the sounds of imagination become hard to separate when you are frightened, and it is dark, and you have been walking for hours. Merry takes the lead on this stretch because he knows this ground best. He keeps them moving at a good pace, choosing the right paths, talking steadily and quietly in a way that is more to keep everyone's nerves calm than because there is anything necessary to say. Pippin follows closely. Sam stays near Frodo. The ferry is close, just a little further. They reach the riverbank and find the ferry right where it should be. They scramble onto it quickly. Merry works the ropes, and it begins to slide out across the dark water with that particular stillness of river crossings at night, the water quiet around them, the far bank coming slowly closer. Behind them, on the road they just left, a black rider appears. It stops at the edge of the water. It seems to watch them cross, but it does not follow. The water lies between them now, and the rider stays on its side of the river. They reach the other bank and step off onto solid ground. For a moment they just stand there, catching their breath, feeling the relief of the river between them and whatever was on the road. They need a place to rest. They arrive eventually at the town of Bree, which is bigger than anything in the Shire and a little rougher around the edges. It is a crossroads town where many different people come through, which means it is used to strangers, but not always comfortable with them. The streets are cobbled and narrow, and the buildings lean together above them. There is an inn here called the Prancing Pony, run by a man named Barlaman Butterbur, who has a good heart and an overwhelmed manner. The inn is warm and noisy when they arrive. Men sitting at tables, a fire going, the smell of food and smoke, and a long day's end. For the hobbits, it feels safe by comparison to the open road, and they settle in with some relief. Gandalf had told Frodo to meet him here at the inn, but Gandalf is not here. Butterbur shrugs and apologizes. No wizard has come. Frodo is troubled by this. He sits in the common room with his friends and tries not to show it too much. The fire is warm. The room is full of people. For a while, things almost feel normal. From across the common room, Frodo notices someone watching them. A man sitting alone in a dark corner, with a hood low over his face and a pipe in his hand. He is long-limbed and quiet, with the kind of stillness about him that is not laziness, but the particular stillness of someone who knows how to wait. His eyes, when they catch the light, are sharp and careful. He lifts one finger, a small, calm gesture, and looks at Frodo directly. An invitation. Frodo goes over, cautiously. The man says he goes by the name Strider, and he knows who Frodo is and what Frodo is carrying, or close enough to it. He says he can help them. He says they need help, whether they know it yet or not. Frodo is not sure what to make of him. He is not quite threatening, but he is not entirely comfortable either. He is the kind of person who might be a great deal of help or a great deal of trouble, and it isn't clear yet which. Strider speaks plainly. He tells the hobbits that the riders are already in Bree, that the town is being watched, that staying at the inn tonight is not safe. He has a better plan, if they are willing to trust him, which he acknowledges they have no particular reason to do. He tells them that the road to Rivendell is long and difficult, and that he knows it better than most. He has walked it before. He knows where the riders will look and where they won't, and he can get them through if they follow his guidance. Frodo listens to all of this, and thinks about Gandalf, who told him to watch for a friend named Aragorn, whose appearance would not be kingly, but who could be trusted. He makes a decision, the first of many he'll have to make on instinct alone. He says they will go with Strider. In the night, the riders do come to the inn. They move through Bree like darkness, moving through shadows, finding the room where the hobbits were supposed to be sleeping. They come in through the window, through the door, silently and without delay. The beds they find are empty. The hobbits, on Strider's advice, slept in a different room. The riders slash at the empty beds and find nothing. By the time this happens, Frodo and his companions are already moving, slipping out of the inn in the dark, with Strider guiding them through the back streets and out of town before the alarm can be raised properly. They pause at the edge of Bree, breathing quietly. Behind them the town sits in its small lights. Ahead is the open wilderness and a very long road. The Wild is not like the Shire. There are no smooth roads or neat hedgerows or reassuring gates. It is rough ground, uneven and overgrown, with no clear path except what Strider chooses. He moves through it easily, reading the land the way someone reads a book they know well. The hobbits follow, adapting as best they can. Strider doesn't say much as they walk, not because he is cold, but because there is a lot of ground to cover, and he is the kind of person who uses words when they are needed, and otherwise lets the quiet do its work. The hobbits stay close together. They have each other, which helps. The days pass in a rhythm of walking, rest, small fires, and careful attention to anything moving in the dark at the edge of camp. The landscape changes around them. From the rough ground near Bree, through weathered hills and then into more broken, rocky terrain. Strider names places as they pass through them. He has a quality of belonging to this land that none of the hobbits quite have, as though he grew up in it, which in a way he did. At night he keeps watch. He sleeps less than the others, or perhaps differently. He smokes his pipe quietly by the low fire and listens to the night. They reach a place called Weathertop, a broken hill with old ruins at the top, the remains of a watchtower that was once tall and proud and is now just worn stone open to the sky. Strider climbs to the top to look out and survey the land. The view from there is very wide and very empty, which is both reassuring and the opposite of reassuring. That night, the riders come. Frodo and the others have a small fire going, a decision that turns out to be a mistake, because fire can be seen from far away. The riders come in the dark, 5 of them, moving with that unnatural silence, the hobbits back against the stones. Strider goes to meet them with a torch, and for a moment the circle of firelight becomes a confused and frightening place. In the middle of it all, Frodo does something that no one fully understands. Not entirely, even himself. He puts on the ring. The world changes around him. The ring's world is grey and cold and stretched. The riders, in that vision, are not faceless black shapes, but crowned kings, and they are terrible. One of them moves toward Frodo with something in its hand, long and thin, and before Strider can get there, it finds him. The blade goes into Frodo's shoulder, just below the neck. He tears the ring off and falls back, and the riders pull away. And then Strider is there with the fire. The wound is cold, not like a normal cut. Cold in a way that goes deeper than skin. They move quickly after that, because the wound is serious and getting worse. Frodo is fading. The cold from the blade is spreading slowly, and it is doing something to him that ordinary medicine cannot fix. He drifts in and out of clarity. The others take turns helping him along. Then, on the road through the wilderness, they meet someone. A rider on a white horse, moving toward them through the trees. She stops, and the light seems to gather around her in a way that is difficult to explain. This is Arwen, one of the elves, and she is Aragorn's in a way that is quiet and long-settled and not needing explanation in this moment. She sees Frodo and understands immediately what the wound is. She speaks to Strider in a low voice, and he speaks back. And then there is a brief, clear disagreement about who is best placed to take Frodo to Rivendell as fast as possible. Arwen's horse is faster. She knows the road. Frodo is lifted onto Arwen's horse, and she rides, not carefully or gently. Quickly, because there is no time to be careful. The night rushes past. The horse moves over ground that might take days on foot in a matter of hours. Frodo is barely conscious, though he can feel the movement and the cool of the air and the sound of hooves on the ground. The riders come after them, all 9, eventually, riding hard and calling in their hollow voices. They know where Frodo is being taken. They pursue. There is a river crossing ahead, the ford of Bruinen, that marks the boundary of Rivendell's land. On the other side, Elrond's power holds. On this side, the riders can act freely. Arwen reaches the river and crosses it, pulling the horse up on the far side. She turns to face the riders who have gathered at the bank. There is an exchange, short and certain on both sides. The riders want what she is carrying. She tells them, in words that carry more weight than their length suggests, that he will not be taken that easily. What happens next is the river itself rising. The water comes up in a sudden rush, white and fast and shaped, truly shaped, into the forms of horses running. It sweeps across the ford and takes the black riders with it, pulling them tumbling downstream, scattering them. For a moment the ford is all water and noise, and then quiet again. The riders are gone, temporarily, but gone. Frodo, barely holding on through all of this, falls. He wakes in a bed in Rivendell, and the contrast with everything that came before could not be more complete. Rivendell is built into the side of a valley where 2 rivers meet, and it is one of the most peaceful places that exists in Middle-earth. The buildings are open and graceful, with high arched windows that let the air move through freely. Waterfalls can be heard from almost everywhere. The light has a particular quality, clear and warm and even. Elves move through the halls quietly, going about their long, unhurried lives. Frodo looks at the ceiling, and then at the room, and then at Gandalf, who is sitting nearby, very much alive and looking somewhat sheepish about having worried everyone. Frodo asks where Gandalf has been. It's a question with a great deal underneath it. Relief and worry and irritation and gladness all at once. Gandalf explains briefly, in the way he explains things when he would rather not go into full detail. There were complications. He was delayed. He is here now. He tells Frodo that the wound is going to be all right, that the healers here were able to stop what the blade was doing. Frodo is weak but intact, and going to remain so. and Bilbo is here. Old Bilbo, even older now, resting in Rivendell in his final years. He and Frodo sit together, and it is gentle and bittersweet. The old hobbit who had carried the ring for so long, and the young hobbit who carries it now. Bilbo asks to see it once more. For just a moment, something changes in his face. A flash of that old desire, sharp and wrong on his kind features. Then it passes, and he is just Bilbo again, tired and fond and sorry. He does not touch it. He asks Frodo about the journey instead, and they talk for a little while in the quiet room. After a few days of rest, Elrond calls together a council. It is held in an open courtyard, in the clear air, with a fountain nearby that makes a soft and constant sound. Those who gather are from every corner of the free world. Elves from different kingdoms, dwarves, men, Gandalf, and Frodo. They have all arrived in Rivendell by different roads and for different reasons, but they are all connected to the same question. What is to be done about the ring? The council proceeds, and what begins as an orderly exchange of information becomes gradually something louder. Everyone has a view. Everyone feels strongly. The ring cannot be hidden. They debate this and reach the conclusion that Sauron's power is already too recovered, that hiding the ring anywhere, no matter how deep or how far, will not hold forever. Eventually his servants or his own growing awareness will find it. The ring cannot be wielded. Someone raises this idea that perhaps the ring could be used against Sauron himself, that its power could be turned to good ends in the right hands. Elrond shuts this down with great certainty. The ring was made by Sauron, and its purpose is woven into it. Anyone who uses it will eventually become Sauron's servant rather than his enemy, no matter how pure their intentions at the beginning. The ring corrupts. That is what it does. The ring cannot be sent over the sea. It would not solve the problem, only move it. There is only one choice. The ring must be destroyed, and the only place in Middle-earth where it can be unmade is where it was made, in the fires of Mount Doom, inside the mountain in the heart of Mordor. The debate that follows this conclusion is mostly about who would go. The council falls into an argument. Voices rising, old grievances surfacing, the dwarf and the elf nearly coming to blows over something that predates this meeting by a long stretch. Into this moment of noise and tension, Frodo speaks, quietly, but clearly enough to be heard. He says he will take it. He will carry the ring to Mordor. The courtyard becomes very still. Everyone looks at the small hobbit sitting in his chair. Gandalf closes his eyes for a moment. Elrond looks at Frodo with an expression that holds many things at once. Sorrow, respect, the particular weight of someone who sees something difficult ahead and cannot prevent it. Frodo says he will do it, though he does not know the way. From behind a stone pillar in the courtyard, there is a small sound, a shuffle, a clearing of throat. Sam steps out from where he has apparently been listening the whole time. He is embarrassed and determined in equal measure. He is not going to be left behind while Mr. Frodo goes to Mordor. He says this as simply as he can, and he means every word of it, and no one in the courtyard has any particular argument to make against it. Sam joins the company. Aragorn Strider stands from where he has been sitting quietly throughout the council. He places his blade on the table and makes his commitment in a few plain words. He will go. He will see Frodo to Mordor or die on the road. There is more to Aragorn than the rough ranger they met in the inn at Bree. In Rivendell, some of it surfaces. He is the heir of Isildur, the direct descendant of the king, who once cut the ring from Sauron's hand. The sword that Isildur carried, the one that shattered, has been kept here in pieces, waiting. It will be reforged for him in time. Legolas, an elf of Mirkwood, fair-haired and quiet-moving, with an archer's ease, speaks for the elves and says he will go with Frodo as well. He and Aragorn have an easy familiarity, as those do who have crossed the same roads before. Gimli, a dwarf, broad and bearded, with the particular dignity of someone from an ancient people, slaps his hand on the arm of his chair and says that no elf will outdo a dwarf in courage if he has anything to say about it. He is going as well. There is a slight tension between these two that runs under the surface of their agreement like a current. Old grudges between their peoples, old misunderstandings. But for now, they are going the same direction. Boromir is from Gondor, the great city of men that stands closest to Mordor's border. He came to this council looking for help for his people, and what he found instead was this. He is a capable and respected soldier, a man who carries himself with the weight of responsibility that comes from knowing your city is the last wall between Mordor and the rest of the world. He is not entirely comfortable with all of this. He has thoughts about the ring that he is not sharing fully yet. But he commits. He will go. Gandalf was always going to go, and everyone knew it. He will lead them on the road, and he is the thread around which the rest of the company arranges itself. 9 members. To match the 9 ring-wraiths, Gandalf notes with a dry kind of symmetry. Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin. The 4 hobbits, Aragorn and Boromir. The 2 men, Legolas the elf, Gimli the dwarf, and Gandalf, the Fellowship of the Ring. On a clear morning, they gather at the gates of Rivendell with their packs and their purposes. Elrond sees them off with words that are honest about what lies ahead. That not all of them may see this through, that the road is long and uncertain. He says they are not bound to each other beyond their own willingness, and that if any of them wishes to turn back at any point, no shame will follow them. Then they go. 9 figures walking out of the valley, moving into the open country to the south. The waterfalls of Rivendell fade behind them. The road opens ahead. They travel for weeks, moving steadily south and then turning east, working their way across open country and then rougher terrain. They develop the rhythms of a traveling group. Who keeps watch? Who wakes at what hour? Who walks where? Gandalf at the front or just behind, reading the land as they go. Aragorn covering the ground with easy, long strides. Legolas moving so lightly that the ground barely seems to register his passing. Gimli solid and steady, and making no complaints about the pace. The hobbits clustered together, keeping each other company, adjusting to a life made of boots and cold mornings, and never quite enough sleep. They are good company in their way. Different enough that there are occasional frictions, similar enough in purpose that those frictions don't last long. Pippin asks too many questions sometimes, which Gandalf tolerates with varying patience. Legolas and Gimli circle around each other with the polite wariness of 2 people from families that have a long history together. Not all of it cheerful, but who have each decided, for now, to put that aside. Boromir trains with Merry and Pippin in the evenings sometimes, showing them how to handle a blade in a practical way. He does it without making a fuss about it, which is the kind of generosity that doesn't announce itself. Sam cooks what there is to cook, and makes a better job of it than anyone else in the group, which earns him a quiet and lasting appreciation that nobody quite puts into words. He keeps an eye on Frodo, not intrusively, just in the steady background way of someone who has taken on a responsibility that has no formal name. The land they cross changes day by day. Rolling hills give way to long, open stretches of grass and stone. The sky is wide out here, wider than anything in the Shire, and at night the stars are closer and more numerous than any of the hobbits have seen before. On clear nights, Legolas looks up at them the way you look at old friends. The question of which route to take becomes important when they reach the mountains. The direct path east goes through the misty mountains over a high pass called Caradhras. Gandalf wants to try this way. It is shorter. It does not take them underground, which is the other option, and underground has its own complications that Gandalf is not eager to explain yet. They begin climbing. The mountain rises steeply, the path growing narrow and the air growing colder. Snow begins to fall. Reasonable snow at first, the kind that happens in high places, then more than reasonable. The wind picks up until it is hard to walk against. The snow deepens. The path becomes difficult to find. They stop and argue with the mountain, which does not argue back, but simply continues to be impassable. Gandalf suspects the weather is not entirely natural. High in the peaks, there is a kind of deliberateness to the storm that feels directed. Saruman, he believes, has turned against them. The wizard who was supposed to be an ally and a counselor, who Gandalf had gone to visit, has instead become part of the enemy's plan. The storm batters the Fellowship on the exposed mountainside with a particular, targeted malice. The snow becomes too deep. Several members of the company are nearly buried. They cannot go forward. They have to turn back. Back at the foot of the mountain, cold and tired, Gandalf puts forward the other option. They will go through the mountains instead of over them, through the old dwarven mines known as Moria, vast chambers and tunnels carved through the mountain by dwarves in an age past. Once it was a great city underground, full of light and craft and people. Now it has been silent for many years, and no one knows exactly what lives there. Gimli is in favor. Moria was his people's greatest work. He speaks of it with a pride that does not quite account for why it has been silent so long. Gandalf is less certain in his optimism, but the path over the mountain is closed. They turn toward Moria. The entrance to Moria is an old door set into a cliff face beside a still, dark lake. The door is invisible in the daylight. It is made of the same stone as the cliff. But when the moon comes out, the outline of it appears in pale lines, and writing too, and the symbol of the dwarves. Gandalf studies the door. It speaks of the old friendship of dwarves and elves, and what is required to open it. Speak, friend, and enter. He puzzles over this for a while, trying various things, until the answer arrives in its simplest form. The word for friend, just the word, and the door opens inward. Behind it is darkness, deep, complete, and very old. The Fellowship goes in. The door closes behind them. Gandalf lights his staff to give them some light, and what the light reveals makes even Gimli go quiet. They are standing in the entrance of something vast. The columns are enormous, carved smooth and straight, reaching up into heights the light cannot reach. The floor is stone, broad and echoing. They are inside Moria, and it is still tremendous even in its emptiness and its dark. They walk through the night, moving through passages and halls, and the scale of what the dwarves built here is staggering. It feels like moving through a drowned city. Everything that was once full of life and work, now still. Frodo walks quietly and thinks his thoughts. Sam stays close. Gandalf leads them through a maze of passages with the confidence of someone who has a direction even when the path isn't clear. They reach a large chamber, a tomb room, and inside it is the tomb of Balin. a dwarf who had led an expedition to reclaim Moria some decades before. Gimli knows this, and the knowledge falls on him like weight. He stands at the tomb for a moment in the wordless way of someone who has just understood something they were hoping wasn't true. Nearby is a book, a record kept by the dwarves during their time here. Gandalf picks it up carefully and reads from it, his voice low and steady. The record tells the story of what happened. They came in good hope. They found the mines. They settled in. And then something came, and everything changed, and the entries in the book get shorter and more urgent. And then the last entry is just a few words. Drums in the deep. We cannot get out. The silence breaks. Noise begins somewhere below them and gets louder very quickly. The sound of many feet on stone, the particular racket of a large number of creatures who are not trying to be quiet at all. The doors of the chamber buckle. Things hit them from the outside with force. The Fellowship takes up positions and prepares. When the doors break open, the chamber fills with a chaos of movement and noise and the flickering of Gandalf's light. Orcs pour in from the doorways, and the Fellowship fights them back. Aragorn and Boromir with their swords, Legolas with arrows, Gimli with his axe, Gandalf at the center. Even the hobbits fight, closer to their full courage than they knew they had. Through one of the doorways, something bigger arrives. A cave troll, enormous and grey-skinned, chained at the wrist, swinging around in the confined space with the blunt and terrible weight of something that has not learned to care what it hits. It moves into the chamber, and the whole dynamic of the fight changes. Frodo gets separated from the others for a moment, and the troll's spear finds him, pushes through him with a force that sends him back against the wall. Sam shouts, the others turn. The troll looks at the small figure it has just impaled and lowers its head. Frodo breathes. He is still breathing. Under his shirt, beneath the ring on its chain, he is wearing a shirt of mithril rings, a gift from Bilbo, given quietly in Rivendell. The spear didn't get through. He is bruised and winded and shaken, but alive. The troll is dealt with, but the noise in the halls around them is getting louder and closer. They run. There is no better way to describe it. They move through the halls of Moria as fast as they can manage, with Aragorn and Gandalf clearing the way, and the others keeping pace as best they can, and the sounds behind them multiply with every passing minute. They are moving through passages and downstairs, going deeper before they can come out, the great span of the mines around them. Ahead is the bridge of Khazad-dûm, a narrow span across an enormous chasm, black and deep on either side. They move toward it. The bridge is the way out. On the other side is a doorway, and beyond the doorway is the outside world. But something is coming from behind. Something that is not an orc. The orcs themselves are afraid of it and hang back. The heat comes first. A warmth on the stone passages that doesn't belong this deep. Then a glow, red and orange, getting closer. A Balrog. A creature of the ancient world, fire and shadow. Something that woke at the wrong moment in the deep places of the earth. It comes down the hall toward them, with a sound like the world tearing at the seams. The Fellowship reaches the bridge. It is narrow, barely wide enough for one person at a time. And the darkness drops away on either side into nothing. They begin to cross quickly. Gandalf stays at the end they came from. When the Balrog reaches the bridge, Gandalf faces it directly. He plants his staff on the stone, and his voice carries across the chasm, with an authority that comes from something much older than this moment. He tells the Balrog this way is closed, that he is the servant of the secret fire and the flame of Ainur, that shadow and flame cannot pass. The Balrog tests the bridge. It is massive, filling the passage, burning and shadowed at once. With a whip of flame in one hand, it steps onto the bridge. The bridge breaks. Gandalf broke it with a strike of his staff on the stone. The Balrog falls, taking a section of the narrow span with it. But as it falls, its whip catches Gandalf around the leg, and Gandalf goes with it. He hangs for a moment at the edge of the broken bridge. The others stand frozen. Frodo cries out and tries to go back, tries to reach him, but Aragorn holds him. Gandalf looks at them. He says simply that they must go on, that they must flee from here. Then he lets go and falls down into the darkness below. The Fellowship stands on the bridge in the silence that follows, and that silence is very complete. They move. Aragorn guides them, because that is what must happen, and the only way to honor anything is to do the thing that needs doing. They find the other side of the mines, the doorway, the outside air. They stumble out into daylight on a steep hillside, with the sounds of Moria closing behind them, and then they stop. The grief comes out then, in the open air on the mountainside. Boromir sits down heavily. Legolas looks away with the particular stillness of someone absorbing something. Gimli bows his head. The hobbits weep. Sam and Frodo, and Merry and Pippin, who have known Gandalf for most of their lives. Aragorn gives them a moment. Just a moment. Then he tells them, gently but clearly, that they cannot stay here. They move on. Without Gandalf, the weight of leading falls to Aragorn more completely. He takes it up without making a ceremony of it, which is his way. He decides their route, keeps them moving at a pace that is hard, but not impossible, and watches over the camp at night with the quiet vigilance he has had from the beginning. The Fellowship is smaller now, 8. They carry the loss of Gandalf with them, in the way you carry a loss when you cannot stop moving. It is there, settled into the space between things, and it changes the shape of everything, even when no one is speaking of it. The forest they reach next is unlike any other place the hobbits have been. The trees here are enormous, silver-barked and tall, their canopies so high above that the ground below is still and dim, like being in a great and living hall. There is no wind in this forest, not in the usual sense. The air moves gently but differently here, as though the forest itself is breathing. This is Lothlorien, and it belongs to the elves, has for a very long time. Moving through it, even Gimli becomes quieter than usual. Even the grief of Moria settles slightly under the weight of the forest's particular quality of peace. It does not take the grief away. It simply exists alongside it in a way that makes carrying it possible. The Lady of Lothlorien is Galadriel. She is one of the oldest living elves, old enough to remember things that are now legend, old enough to have known the world when it was different from what it is now. She carries this with a kind of grace that is not entirely comfortable to be near, because being near it reminds you of how brief and particular everything about your own life is. She sees the Fellowship arrive, and she sees more than what they show her. She can see into people, or near enough to it. One by one, she looks at each of them in that way that is quiet on the outside, and something else entirely on the inside. When she looks at Frodo, what passes between them is something the others cannot see clearly. But Frodo looks back with steadiness, and she nods. She tells them they are welcome here, and that they can rest. They rest. The rest in Lothlorien is unlike anything they have had since leaving Rivendell. The elves of this forest live in the trees themselves, on wide platforms connected by rope bridges and wooden stairs, and the fellowship is given space among them. They sleep in the canopy, with the leaves moving very softly around them, and the river audible somewhere below. In the mornings, the light comes through the silver leaves in long, quiet bars, and the air has a quality of stillness that feels deliberate, as though the whole forest has been arranged to make rest possible. Frodo sleeps more deeply than he has in weeks. So does Sam, who wakes each morning looking slightly surprised about it. The grief of losing Gandalf sits with all of them still. But here it becomes something that can be carried rather than something that makes carrying anything else impossible. There are no roads here pressing them forward. There is just the forest and its patience, and the sound of the river far below. And for a little while, that is enough. One evening, Galadriel takes Frodo aside to a part of the garden where a stone basin sits on a pedestal. She fills it with water from a nearby stream and tells Frodo that this is a mirror. Not the kind that shows your reflection, but the kind that shows things that were, or are, or may yet come. She invites him to look. Frodo leans over the basin, and in the water he sees images. The Shire, peaceful and ordinary, and then not. Sam in a garden that has been destroyed. Great machines and dark smoke, and the Shire's green hills broken up and changed. He doesn't understand all of it, but he feels the weight of it. A future that doesn't have to happen, or might happen, depending on what is done now. He looks up and he looks at the ring, and then at Galadriel. He offers it to her. It seems, in this moment, the right thing to do. She is wise and powerful. She could bear it better than he can. It would be a relief. Galadriel looks at the ring, and something moves through her. Something old and deep and fierce. She is honest about it. She tells Frodo that she has thought long about this exact moment. She has imagined what she would do with that power. She imagined doing good things with it. But she knows, in the way of someone who has lived long enough to see the shape of things clearly, that what begins as good intent does not stay that way. The ring would make her a queen, beautiful and terrible and dark, and she would set out to help people and end up ruling them. She refuses. The word she uses is simple, and her saying it costs her something visible. She tells Frodo that she will remain herself, the diminished, lesser version of what she might have become, but the person she actually is. Frodo looks at her for a moment and nods. He will keep the ring. He will carry it. Before the Fellowship leaves Lothlorien, Galadriel gives each of them something. The gifts are quiet and practical. Cloaks that blend with the color of the land around them, making the Fellowship much harder to see in the open. Each person also receives something specific to them. Frodo receives a small vial of light. The light of the Star of Eärendil, she tells him, gathered in glass, a light to use in dark places. Legolas receives a bough of the Galadrim. Aragorn receives a brooch. Sam, characteristically, asks if she might have some rope, and is given a coil of elvish rope that is lighter and stronger than anything he has used before, which pleases him enormously. They leave Lothlorien by water, in 3 long elvish boats that sit low and steady on the river. The river is wide and calm here, running south through the forest, and then out into open country. They move quietly downstream, the paddles turning the water without much sound, the trees on the banks moving slowly past. It is peaceful. One of the few moments on the whole journey that has been quietly, simply peaceful. The grief of Moria has not gone anywhere. but the forest and the river and the boats and the steady movement make everything feel for just a few hours like it can be held. Frodo sits in his boat and watches the water and thinks. As they travel downstream and the journey south continues, Boromir becomes harder to read. He is a man carrying a great deal. Worry for his city, responsibility to his father, awareness of what Mordor means for Gondor in particular, and he does not speak about any of it directly, but he is quieter than he was. And when he looks at Frodo, there is something in his face that he is trying to manage. The ring works on everyone differently. For Boromir, it works on what is already there. The genuine desire to protect his people, the honest wish to save his city. It takes those real things and bends them into something that starts to feel like reason, like logic, like a plan that makes sense. The ring would give Gondor the power to push Sauron back, if someone took it and used it wisely. Used it to protect rather than to conquer. Then everything could be saved. Couldn't it? He turns this thought over and over. He tries to bring it up at a rest stop, sitting near Frodo, speaking calmly and reasonably about alternatives, about whether Mordor is truly the only answer. Frodo listens carefully and answers carefully, and the conversation ends without resolving anything. When they reach a place called Amon Hen, with the wide southern river visible and a decision to be made about which bank to take, the fellowship stops to rest and discuss. Frodo finds he needs a moment alone. He walks into the trees by himself, just to think without the weight of other people's eyes on him. He is at the point of the journey where the weight of what he is carrying has become something he can measure directly and clearly. He understands, in a way that was only abstract in Rivendell, that this road goes to Mordor, and that Mordor is real, and that the ring is real, and that none of it is going to simply resolve itself. He is going to have to do something impossibly difficult, and he is, in the end, a hobbit from the Shire. He sits on a high stone seat at the top of the hill, and from there he can see vast distances in every direction. The river below, the land stretching out, the shadow to the east. He puts on the ring. The world shifts to grey, and from Mordor, a great eye sweeps across that grey world toward him. Sauron, his gaze vast and searching, and he feels it land on Frodo with a focus that is like fire. Frodo tears the ring off, gasping. He comes down from the high seat, still shaken, and Boromir is there. The conversation that follows is gentle at first, Boromir being kind, being reasonable, being the person he actually is, as well as the person the ring has been slowly reshaping him toward. He talks about Gondor, about sacrifice, about needing to be practical about what power is available and how it might be used. And then he reaches for the ring. The change in him is visible and immediate and terrible in a specific way. Not monster terrible, but person terrible. The particular horror of watching someone good make a wrong turn and be unable to stop themselves. He grabs for the ring. Frodo runs. Boromir chases him through the trees, bigger and faster. And when he catches Frodo, he speaks words that are not really Boromir's words, and his face holds something that has never been there before. Frodo puts on the ring and vanishes. Boromir stands in the trees, invisible to him now, and the madness passes. He looks at his own hands. He calls into the empty air. He is Boromir again, and what he just did settles on him like the weight of a stone. He does not chase further. He stands in the forest for a moment, then begins walking back to the others, walking with the difficult gait of someone who has just seen themselves clearly in a very bad light, and cannot undo what they saw. Frodo stands invisible at the edge of the river, the ring in his hand, and thinks through what just happened and what it means. Boromir is a good man, and the ring nearly made him something else entirely. And the closer they get to Mordor, the stronger it will pull at every person in the Fellowship. Each of them, in their own way, would eventually be at risk of what just happened with Boromir. He cannot take others into Mordor, not with the ring doing what it does. He will go alone. He begins to climb into one of the elvish boats and push off from shore. Sam has been looking for Frodo ever since he disappeared from the group. He crashes through the undergrowth and arrives at the riverbank just in time to see the boat already moving away from shore. Frodo visible again now in the boat and paddling. Sam does not hesitate. He walks straight into the river. He can't swim, which he will acknowledge freely. This does not stop him. He goes in up to his waist, then his chest. Then he is under the water, and then Frodo has reached down and grabbed his hand and is pulling him up. Sam comes up sputtering and gasping and grabs onto the side of the boat with both hands and does not let go. Frodo looks at him. He tells Sam he is coming into great danger. Sam tells him he knows. He looks Frodo in the eye and says that he made a promise to Gandalf to not let Frodo go out of his sight, and he intends to keep it. They look at each other for a moment. Then Frodo pulls Sam into the boat. Back in the forest, the situation has deteriorated. Saruman's forces have sent a large company of Uruk-hai, a breed of orc, larger and more purposeful, and capable of moving in daylight, unlike most of their kind, directly to intercept the Fellowship. They pour through the trees in large numbers, and the remaining members of the Fellowship are scattered trying to deal with them. Merry and Pippin find each other in the confusion, and they make a decision that is both brave and practical. They run toward the danger rather than away from it, making noise, drawing attention, trying to pull the Uruk-hai away from where Frodo must be heading with the boat. It works, in that the Uruk-hai chase them. They run hard through the forest, but they are small, and the Uruk-hai are not, and eventually they are caught. They are taken alive. Saruman wants hobbits, and has said so, and the Uruk-hai follow orders, but taken nonetheless. Before they are taken completely, Boromir finds them. He comes out of the trees and he fights. What Boromir does in these trees in this moment has the quality of a man who has clearly decided something. Not a dramatic decision spoken aloud, but a quiet one, acted out through every choice he makes in the next few minutes. He is sorry for what he did, and this is how he is sorry. He shoots. He keeps shooting. He stands between the Uruk-hai and the two small hobbits, and he does not move back. 3 arrows find him. He goes to his knees, but he does not stop. He goes to his knees a second time. He keeps fighting. He is not enough against so many. Merry and Pippin are taken and carried off into the forest. The Uruk-hai leave. Boromir is left on the ground in the trees, 3 arrows in him, still alive. Aragorn comes through the trees and finds him. He kneels beside Boromir, and they look at each other, and what passes between them in this moment is a great deal more than what gets spoken aloud. Boromir says that he tried to take the ring. He says he is sorry. He is worried that he has failed. Failed his city, failed his father, failed everything he was trying to protect. Aragorn tells him plainly that he has not failed. He says Boromir fought. He says the city will not fall. He says Gondor has a king, and that the king will come. It is a promise that costs Aragorn something too, because it means accepting what he has been walking away from for a very long time. Boromir goes still. Aragorn stays beside him for a moment. Just a moment, and the forest is quiet around them. On the river, Frodo and Sam are crossing to the other bank. The far shore, the dark shore, the east bank that faces toward Mordor. They paddle steadily, and they do not speak much. There is not much to say that hasn't already been decided. Sam looks back at the bank they came from, and then looks forward. He says quietly that he is glad to be going. Glad to be with Frodo. Whatever that means, whatever it costs, he is glad to be here. Frodo looks at him with the particular expression of someone who is grateful in a way that goes past easy words. They reach the far bank and pull the boat up on the shore. Back at the bank, Aragorn gathers Legolas and Gimli. He looks at the river, at the boat gone, at the decision Frodo has made, and he lets it be. Frodo has made his choice, and Aragorn will not undo it. He is at peace with this, or as close to peace as this moment allows. There are other members of the Fellowship to think about. Merry and Pippin, taken by the Uruk-hai, still alive, still worth going after. He tells Legolas and Gimli simply that they will not abandon them. He looks east, across the river, once more. Then he turns north and starts running. Legolas falls into step immediately. Gimli runs after them, muttering about the pace, but running. The Fellowship of the Ring is broken. Frodo and Sam are on the eastern shore, moving south together, toward the long and terrible road to Mordor. Merry and Pippin are in the hands of the Uruk-hai and being carried north. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are running through the plains in pursuit. Boromir is at rest in the forest. And Gandalf. Gandalf fell in Moria, in the dark, into the chasm, and no one knows yet whether that is the end of it. 8 became 7, became 6, became scattered. The company that left Rivendell together is not together anymore. And yet the ring is moving, slowly, in small hobbit hands, carried by someone who didn't want to carry it, and chose to anyway, moving east and south toward fire and shadow, and the long unwinding of everything that began with a small golden ring in a dark river, found by a creature in the mud, long, long ago. Frodo walks. Sam walks beside him. The story is not over. It is only beginning. The end, if you are still awake, try our other movie story videos. Subscribe if you liked the video. Thanks.